Happy day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I hear the cathedral bells ringing in the background, so that just says we're at the top of the hour. So we'll begin in a quick moment. Just wanted to give you folks a chance to log on, familiarize yourself, and I'm sure you're very familiar with Zoom by now. So yes, please feel free to note who's in the house, let everyone know that you're here and what agency you're with. Thank you so much for participating again. And today is our day 3 for our No More webinar series, Mañaina, our elders, our communities of strength, and addressing elder abuse. So thank you so much for joining us again today. We have a wonderful presenter lined up for you. She's waiting in the wings. And of course, we just wanted to start out by thanking, of course, our funding agencies for supporting our efforts to be able to provide these webinars to you, as well as all the other coalition activities. And that is thanks to funding from the Office on Violence Against Women, as well as through the Health and Human Services, through the Family Violence and Prevention Services Program. Thank you so much for joining us. I see we have folks from various agencies already logged on. And yes, certainly many of you are very familiar with our layout and our format. Thank you. So just wanted to give you a preview for today's agenda. And of course, we'll be flexible and we'll go with the presentation on how fast or how slow, and we'll be able to accommodate you. Be sure to get familiar with the chat and the Q&A. Yes, I see as you log in, you know where the chat is. So if you're feeling up to it too, the Q&A is for any questions that you may have. Just a reminder, for webinar materials, please visit our website, guamcoalition.org. And if you haven't been there, it's that login button in the top right corner. Usually it falls in our homepage. So username is elders and the password is case sensitive. So all caps EAA 2021. There you'll be able to find information on the agenda, presenters' biographies, as well as their handouts. And oftentimes you may have updates to their handouts, so check it frequently. We are fortunate to have the University of Guam collaborate with us to offer continuing education units. For the 10 contact hours, you are eligible to receive 1 CEU. Of course, that means you should have been present during the webinars from day 1, day 2, which happened last week, and now we are at day 3, and tomorrow is our day 4. Please email UOG directly, and the subject, of course, is our webinar title. So please join us for tomorrow, again, day 4. We also have agencies lined up. You'll be hearing more about the Elder Justice Center, as well as information on services and resources provided by the Office of the Public Guardian. And again, as usual, we appreciate your feedback. You will be receiving a reminder. Zoom is the one that sends those out with my name on it saying, please complete, and we'll provide you the link. So you don't have to remember that. But just in case you want to get to it sooner, this is the same link if you've attended the prior webinars and you received the same notice. So please be sure to complete the survey. Just wanted to also remind you that we have other webinars coming up. It is our aim ever since this COVID, since we're not able to meet in person, face to face, what this has provided us is the opportunity to provide more frequent webinars at your convenience and at your own, in the confines of your own workspace. Our upcoming webinar is on advocacy and services, addressing our LGBTQ plus community. And that'll be in 2 weeks, June 16 and 17. 23 and 24, same time, 8:30 a.m. to 11. So please visit our website for more info. So now I'd like to call on our presenter for today, and that is from the Department of Public Health and Social Services with the Division of Senior Citizens, the Bureau of Adult Protective Services. My goodness, that's a long title, right? We have Evelyn Manibusan, Social Service Supervisor. Just wanted to point out that she's a social worker who has been in the field of social work for over two decades, and that's primarily been with our government of Guam. So she began with Department of Public Health and Social Services while at CPS, Child Protective Services. She spent most of her career in the field working with individuals with mental illnesses at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and now we know that as Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. Then she moved on to work with individuals with disabilities while at the Department of Integrated Services for Individuals with Disabilities, or DISID. And now she's back at Department of Public Health and Social Services, and this time under the Division of Senior Citizens with the Bureau of Adult Protective Services. So please join me in welcoming Evelyn. And thank you, Evelyn, for joining us again.
Thank you, Cynthia, and welcome everyone to the third day of our webinar. Yes, that was a lot to swallow. Department of Mental Health, I'm sorry, Department of Public Health and Social Services. I am with the Division of Senior Citizens, the Adult Protective Services. We're gonna switch now. We're gonna try to see if I could put my, share my screen with you guys so that then we can start the presentation in a short moment.
Great. Let us know if you need assistance. I have Dwayne and Marie standing by to post up the slides and assist you with the controls.
Okay. I may need, I'm trying to pull it up. Okay.
And meanwhile, folks, as she's working with her slides to bring them up on screen, just wanted to point out that we are very appreciative of Evelyn, and she has with her staff, Bill Rages and Michael Gombar. So they are, of course, very familiar to us as well, as we have seen them in many other trainings as well. So thank you so much to you and your team for joining us today.
A very small team, but yes, thank you for that. I am having a little trouble bringing it up. Maybe Dwayne, I know I sent it to him, maybe he can pull it up on your end. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay.
So that's a cue for our team to please share the screen.
Hi, this is Marie. I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay, thanks, Marie.
Okay, there we have it. Okay, thank you very much, Marie. We'll just start in a moment. As you know, this is the Bureau of Adult Protective Services. I do have a staff of two, Mr. William Rages and Mr. Michael Gumbar. So without further ado, we will begin with talking about a little bit about Adult Protective Services, talking a little bit about our Manamko, our Mananata, our Sainas, as we all know them to be. We want to go into what is the Adult Protective Services, what our mission will be, which will be our next slide. And so if they could pull that up for me. Okay. Here we go. The Adult Protective Services mission is one. We are providing service to our elderly, our Mananko, Mananata, and adults also with disabilities. We do this in a manner that is least restrictive of respect to their dignity and also in consideration of their values and practice of their culture. We take a look at culture as something that is very important to us, of course, on our island, and most important, of course, to our elderly population. We want to make them feel comfortable when we are out there doing any type of investigation. And so we take into consideration some of those values that are very dear to them. And this is coming out of our excerpt from our 2016 Bureau of Adult Protective Services annual report. So my next slide will talk about the Protective Services Act. And what we are known to be as the Adult Protective Services, or the Act, and it's out of the Guam Code Annotated, which is Chapter 2, Title 10. We are a Public Law 31-278, which was enacted and effective on December 28 of 2020. And that was a culmination of Public Laws 19-54 and Public Law 21-33. And in that public law, it created the Public Law 31-278, which is what is known as the Adult Protective Services Act for Guam. My next slide will talk about the purpose of the act. And what our purpose is to recognize that abuse and neglect and exploitation of our elderly and adults with disabilities are problems that require our attention and intervention that are matter of public policy. We want to make sure that our individuals with disabilities as well as our elderly are taken care of if there should be an abuse or neglect that is suspected in their home or in their communities. We extend that to protective care and services to them if they've been abused, which can be carried out in a manner that is, once again, least restrictive of the individual's rights in accordance with due process. We want to make sure that we follow the law. We want to also make sure that we're taking care of their needs at the time that their needs need to be taken care of. We value family. We value the family's contributions in the care of its elderly, in the care of our Mañaina, our Manamko, and in our adults with disabilities. We acknowledge every effort that they have made in order to assist them and support them in enhancing their caretaking roles. A lot of what we see in adult protective services is that the individuals who have been abused, which is our elderly and our adults with disabilities, a lot of times the abuser is their caretaker. And a lot of times we have to support and give the caretaker the tools in order to continue to take care of the individual, but in a safe, healthy environment. Our next slide will talk more about who do we serve. And the people that we serve are those individuals that are 60 years and above and older. We also serve adults with disabilities who are 18 years and older. Their disabilities may be physical or mental impairments that limits one or more of their major life activities. Or they do have a history that has been classified as having an impairment such that limits one or more life activities. And some of those life activities may include just caring for themselves. Somebody that cannot perform some of the major tasks of activities of daily living. They're unable to care for themselves, bathe themselves, unable to maybe walk distances. So we take a look at the physical limitations as well for those that are 18 and above, and also if they've been classified to have some mental illness or some mental impairment. So we take a look at the referrals that come to us, and these are the types of individuals that we provide service to. The 60-year-olds, our elderly population, and also our adults with disabilities. The next slide will talk about our responsibilities. The Bureau of Adult Protective Services have certain responsibilities that come with public law that we have mentioned earlier. And that is, we receive these reports. We investigate all these reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of, against our elderly, our Manamko, and our adults with disabilities. We provide protective care and services when necessary. And how we do that is we have what is called the emergency receiving home, called Guma Serenidad. And in Guma Serenidad, we provide 24-hour shelter for them. There's available to them to provide that safe and temporary shelter to our elderly and adults with disabilities who are victims of abuse and are in imminent danger for this abuse to be continuing in the home that they reside in, or possibly even in a residential placement that they are with. So the responsibilities we have are great. These are referrals that come in from all walks of life. And everybody who is able to refer, we will talk about mandated reporters in a few more slides that come. Our responsibilities continue to be that we as provide a 24-hour crisis intervention hotline that is available on evenings, weekends, and holidays. And that is through our Gumaserena Dodd Emergency Receiving Home. They also run the 24-hour crisis intervention. So any referral that needs to be made or any person that has an inquiry, maybe in the after hours, weekends, and holidays, can call our crisis intervention hotline and speak with the person who will take down this information. We will get the referral and we will respond accordingly. What we also do is we provide education and outreach. We provide them to professionals and into our community. We want to increase this awareness of abuse and the identification on how to report, how to prevent the abuse and neglect and exploitation of our elderly adults with a disability, such as this forum today, where we're able to talk a little bit about a subject that a lot of people don't like to talk about maybe, or that they have had in their past been in contact with somebody who they knew may have been abused or neglected or may have been exploited in some way or another. It's hard to talk about some of these issues, but it's something that the community has to be aware of. It's something that we want to bring about an awareness to because it does happen. It does happen in our community here on Guam, and we are not immune to any type of issues that don't come to the table regarding abuse and neglect. Our next thing we want to talk about would be the ethical principles that revolve around adult protective services, which would be the next slide. And that is that adults that we come in contact with, our elderly population as well, they have the right to be safe. If their home environment is not conducive to providing the safety for them, then we would take a look at seeing if we could take them out of that situation and put them in the emergency receiving home. The emergency receiving home is operated by the Catholic Social Services, who is part of our vendor population, and they provide the services for us. The adults retain all their civil and constitutional rights unless the court adjudicates otherwise, unless there is something that the court has said that they're unable to make certain decisions or something and has brought that to our attention. And otherwise we would treat the individual as if all their rights and constitutional rights are intact. The adults have the right to make the decisions that may not conform to our societal norms, but as long as these decisions don't harm themselves or don't harm others, we have to make sure that they are living the lives that they want to live in a safe environment. All adults with a disability and or a manumco are presumed to have the decision-making capacities, unless, as I said, unless the court adjudicates otherwise, and lets us know that they're not able to, and there is maybe a court document stating that they're not able to make the decisions on their own, and therefore we have to look at who is the person that has been the responsible party, whether it be the guardian, whether it be a person who is the power of attorney, and we have to make connections with these individuals. Competent adults have the right to accept our services. They also have the right to refuse them. And so that becomes a difficult part when sometimes our alleged abusers do not want to participate, or sometimes are not able to, we aren't able to find them or otherwise. So it becomes very difficult in that manner. And then we elicit, of course, the help of maybe the police department. If we substantiate a case, we elicit the help of the Attorney General's office in order to continue to further move this case in the hands of where it needs to go to for proper attention, further attention. And so these ethical principles are what comes out of the National Center for Elder Abuse Administration on Aging. And these are some of the principles that we go by in adult protective services, that we have to make sure that people's rights are protected, that they are protected as well within their homes, and that this abuse does not continue. And we are able to safeguard the situations that they come from. The next slide is, what is elder abuse? we like to talk a little bit about the different types of abuse that happen. And what it is, it's really the mistreatment or harming of the older person or the person with a disability. And elder abuse can occur anywhere. It can occur in our communities, and it can occur in institutional settings, and it takes many forms. We at the Adult Protective Service have 7 identified forms that we take a look at, 7 identified forms that then be referred to us. And they are in terms of abandonment, emotional, psychological abuse, financial or property exploitation. We have neglect, physical and sexual abuse, and self-neglect. The most common occurrence that we have on Guam are the financial and property exploitation. And this is really big on Guam because there are a lot of elderly individuals, a lot of adults with disabilities are exploited financially, are manamko, are taken advantage of in regards to their finances, and sometimes in regards to property and things that they own that the person that they trusted had taken advantage and had misused that authority that they have and had maybe changed some things, had maybe changed the property to now become their property. And so there's a lot that has to go into really determining by financial property exploitation. And it's really a big thing on Guam and has been for several years. But we also see abandonment. We also see emotional, psychological abuse, neglect, and the others. And we'll go into each of these and kind of give you a perspective on what each of them mean and what we are looking for when we go in to investigate some of these referrals that come to us. And so our next slide will talk about recognizing elder abuse. And I've taken this from the Alabama Aging and Disability Resource Center. It's a YouTube presentation, but it's quite interesting in terms of recognizing elder abuse. It'll give us a little insight of what the types of abuses are. And if we would take a moment to watch this and then maybe come back and I can discuss a little bit about the YouTube presentation. If they could pull that up for me, I'd really appreciate it.
By the time someone becomes elderly, you would think that they deserve respect, and that when needed, they should be cared for with the right compassion. Unfortunately, for almost 10% of the elderly in America, their lives are a story of abuse and neglect. If you want to help, this is what you should look out for. Many of the elderly are physically abused. They are shoved, hit, or intentionally given the wrong medications by someone who is supposed to care for them. Unfortunately, this even sometimes results in unwanted sexual touching or activity. Some elders are not given the proper care because they are neglected. Others may be taken advantage of financially. Since the average abused elder is nearing 80 and less capable of asking for help, it is vital that we become sensitive to the problem of elder abuse. This often starts by spending time getting to know them and observing how they are treated. Looking for bruises and paying attention to their state of mind can help you uncover abusive situations. Also, time should be spent looking at their finances to make sure that someone has not been taking advantage of them. Although medical and mental health professionals are trained to detect signs of abuse, all of us can become part of the solution. The Alabama Aging and Disability Resource Center near you is your source of information and assistance for the elderly, the disabled, and their caregivers. Whether you are looking for information and assistance or counseling on your benefits and options, looking for valuable information on health and wellness, planning for your future, or even need support during a crisis, you can call us at 1-800-AGE-LINE. That's 1-800-243-5463.
Okay, thank you for placing that up. And when I looked at that, we do have an aging resource disability center here on an ADRC. And when I saw the Alabama, it really wanted me to say, hey, we do have one here, and we really need to take a look at how we can do a lot of things locally. It says what we need to say. We need to learn how to recognize elder abuse on Guam. We need to learn how to bring this out to our community, and it shouldn't be something that we should be not talking about, but it's something that needs to be brought to the attention of our community. And that just says a lot when you have to take a look at really what's going on with the elder. We see this possibly every day. We hear young people yell at maybe their grandmothers or their grandfathers. We even see bruises that may be there, and we're wondering where this may come from. As social workers in the field, or even any other professional in the field, we have to take a look at these signs, and we have to take a look at what is happening. Is this a form of abuse that may be happening? And a lot of times we may not see it. A lot of times we may say, oh, it was just something. But more than all, it is something that does happen, and it is happening in our island right now. It is happening as we speak. Possibly, hopefully, that we're able to bring about the awareness and work as a community to help to get rid of elder abuse, help to maintain some of the things that we need to maintain. The types of elder abuse that we do have and we do take a look at is, as I said, abandonment. And what abandonment is, it is the desertion of an elderly and adult with a disability of his or her caregiver under circumstances in which a reasonable person would continue to provide care or custody. These are people that are the power of attorneys, or people who are guardians, or people who have been given the responsibilities to take care of their elderly person, to take care of a person with a disability. But to some extent, they felt maybe that the caretaking role has become a bit too hard for them, or that they're unable to do this anymore. And sometimes they just leave. They leave the elderly at home. They leave them for hours, just being by themselves. And when a referral is made to our agency in regards to somebody who's been alone, they know that their son or daughter has been taking care of them. They know somebody has been there, but there's nobody there at this point anymore. So we have to take a look at what is going on in that family environment, and take a look at really the person who has been given the responsibility to take care of the person through the power of attorney, through their guardianship. There are some responsibilities that they need to abide by given that responsibility. And so if they're not doing that, we have to take a look at that as abandonment. We have to take a look at that they're leaving the elderly alone, they're leaving the adult with a disability person alone at home, or maybe they had left them at the hospital, and then all of a sudden we don't have them calling back, or they don't come to visit anymore, or we have people at the clinics that wait a long time, and then somebody comes much later. We have to take a look at how long these things happen and how often they occur to the person, to make sure that we are not leaving people behind and not misusing our responsibilities that we've been given through our power of attorneys or through our guardianships. The emotional and psychological abuse means really fear. There are agitations, confusions that come along with it because it's brought about in forms of intimidating behaviors, threats, harassments, and or deceptive acts or false or misleading statements made in malicious attempt to agitate, to confuse, to frighten, or cause severe depression or serious emotional distress on the elderly or the adult with a disability. Emotional psychological abuse has been the second leading cause of abuse that we see here on island. Second to first is financial. We see now that we have been in this pandemic that everybody has been home for the most part in the beginning of last year from March on. And so we see that a lot of families now are having to take care of their elderly individual, having to take care of moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas. And so now we're seeing that the families are having additional difficulty because grandma or grandpa who used to go to a daycare center, who used to go to the senior centers, or used to just be out and about are no longer doing that because of the pandemic. So we start to see that they've been isolated in the home. We start to see that the families are now becoming more maybe agitated themselves, that they are doing a lot more work for mom and dad, a lot more work for grandma and grandpa, that maybe the senior center may have helped them about, the adult day centers may have helped them about in that respect. And so now everybody's home. And because everybody's home, that becomes a more emotional, psychological strain on the family. And so we don't see a lot of this happening now because everybody is home. As we open more of our doors, as the pandemic has allowed, then we see some of these coming out of the woodwork. We see some of the people now going back to their clinics, visiting their doctors, and now see some of the doctors wondering what has gone on. Maybe we see a change in their mood, their behavior, and so we get the referrals for emotional, psychological abuse because the elder is just not themselves. Doctors who have seen them before prior to the pandemic are now seeing a different person, a person that maybe has withdrawn, a person that maybe is unable to talk about what is happening at home and are fearful of that. The fear is because they know that they have to go back. They go back to this environment. And so we have to take a look at when they do have referrals for emotional and psychological abuse, that we make every effort that we can, given our limitations of the pandemic, given our restraints in order to go out and visit people, we still have to do the things that we need to do. We still have to maintain our 6 feet distancing. We still have to wear our masks, and we still have to make sure that we are safe, as well as keeping our elderly population or an adult with disabilities safe as well. They are our most vulnerable population during this pandemic, so we have to make sure that they are safe. Safe from abuse, safe from the pandemic, and safe from an environment that continues to have them fearful of just being there. The next slide will talk about, of course, emotional, psychological abuse and the verbal assaults, insults, and humiliation. We have people that have been referred to us because their grandchildren just continue to talk badly to them. And I want to bring back the respect that we need to have for our elderly population. And that is what a lot of our elders have told me, is that I just want them to respect me. They are my grandchildren. They shouldn't be talking to me like this. These verbal assaults, these verbal threats by their grandchildren really hurt them, and it is abuse. And we have to take care of how to treat and to teach our younger generations the respect that we knew growing up with our families. And it just goes back to also tying in with what our previous presenter Malia talked about, our Manamko, our Sana, that they are our forefathers. They will teach us the way, and we need to make sure that they are taken care of. So that is with emotional support, ignoring them, or even giving them the silent treatment. That does happen in the homes that we see today. For financial or property exploitation, this is illegal or improper use of their money, their property, or resources for monetary or personal benefits for profit or gain for the person. It includes, but is not limited to, theft, misappropriations, concealment, misuse, or fraudulent deprivation of money or property. And this is so common. We see this a lot in our elders, that they didn't know that they were taking money out of their account, or they didn't know that the property that they had signed over to their son or daughter was actually taken away from them. They thought they were helping their son or daughter with maybe a mortgage, and they were putting the house up for collateral, but the house was still going to be, in the end, given back to the elder. But then some elders don't understand sometimes what they're signing. And when they sign it in good faith that their son or daughter or their loved one is really telling the truth, or is really being truthful. But in the end, they're not truthful. We find out that in the end, they have had made all the necessary changes in order to change a deed in a property. And sometimes that's very difficult to revert back to its original owner. And then you have an elderly individual that didn't understand, um, doesn't understand why their son, their daughter, their grandchild, the person that they left, um, that they trusted, has now done this to them. And it's not just property, it's money. It's not just a little bit. It may end up with, oh, it's maybe we take out $20 here, and then the $20 goes into 200, and then it turns into 2,000. And so there is incremental misuse of the finances. In the very beginning, the elder doesn't realize that this is happening. And by the time they know it, their loved one has not been the same person as well and doesn't take care of them. And they find out from another person who's now helping them that their bank accounts or that their whole life savings is not there. And people prey upon the elderly because, as in the previous presentations, they have a nest egg. They've been saving a lot for these golden years, and the golden years are not golden anymore. And so that's the sad thing about it, is that the people that they trust have taken away what they have worked for all these years, so that they don't have to rely on anybody, that they're able to take care of themselves. And this is what they had set out to do, and this is what they had saved up to do. And it is just not happening for some people. And that's the reality, and it's a sad reality. And so we're faced with having to take these people, get a lot of information, investigate, and substantiate some of these things so that we can elevate it to the Attorney General's office, who would help us to move forward if there is any actions that need to be taken civilly, so that these people will be reminded that it is a form of abuse. It is something that we shouldn't take lightly. And yes, it may be your mom and dad's life savings, but it wasn't your life savings to take and abuse the way that you have done, given that they've provided the trust in you. So it gets really challenging at times to be able to see that their faces and their expressions are just something that it's hard to take sometimes, but as a worker, you have to persevere and you have to move on, because that is what we need to do, is to safeguard their finances or safeguard themselves from being further abused. So as I had talked about financial and property exploitation, in the next slide would talk about, it is theft of their money, their property, or their identity. It's really misuse of their funds. And it's the abuse of your power of attorney, as I mentioned. It's misuse of things that they give to you, their credit cards, their ATMs, for you to be able to purchase the things that they need, to be able to buy the stuff that they want to eat. There we go, illegal property transfers. This has happened on Guam. We see this happening in which they just deed the property to themselves because they have the authority to do that through their power of attorney, that they were given, that they were trusted on by their parents, and then this has happened. There are a variety of frauds that we have talked about earlier in a previous presentation, and scams, elderly scams that happen where they'll call you up and they'll ask you for certain information. And of course, the elder feels like this is a conversation that is nothing wrong with it. So they provide this information, and then there's identity theft, or there's things that go on that they know nothing about. And there's a failure to provide agreed upon services. This is if you have the responsibility through your power of attorney or through your guardianship to take care of your loved one, and you fail to do that. You fail to provide maybe the much needed attention that they need, whether it be medically or otherwise. And we have to take a look at that. And there are times where the loved one or the power of attorney or the guardian refuses to return borrowed money or property. They literally refuse. They literally think that I've been doing this. My mother, my agreed upon this. My dad knew about this. But in the end, when you have to do most of your investigations, you find out that that is not the case. Our next slide will talk about neglect. And neglect is failure of a caregiver to provide for the physical, your mental or emotional health and well-being of the elderly adult with a disability, and includes but not limited to assisting in their personal hygiene, providing the more basic needs, your food, your water, your clothing, your shelter, providing for medical care, or failure to protect them from any health and safety hazards, withholding medications or over-medicating themselves. We do have people, we do see every so often have a referral on neglect. And a lot of the times the neglect is they're just really not being taken care of. They don't have the personal hygiene products that they need. They may have not been properly fed. They've been unkept. Their medical conditions have warranted that they continue to go back and forth into the hospitals or into the clinics. And sometimes they don't get the proper medications, or they're over medicated. And so we have to take a look at the neglect that the caretakers are not doing in regards to the elder that they're taking care of, or the adult with the disability that they're caretaking for. So the caregiver is normally a family member or any person. It could be in a health facility. If you're at St. Dominic's, we do have what is called the Ombudsman Program, of which I'll explain in a few more slides, that goes out to these facilities and takes a look at the residents that are there and seeing if there are any things that there may be happening in that facility. So these are, if you're a caregiver, if you're the legal guardian, you care of the custody of the elderly adult with a disability, there are responsibilities that come with your power of attorney, responsibilities that come with your guardianship. And a lot of times it's responsibilities that you are aware of and you have been taken care of, but throughout the years, things may slip and slide, and then the abuse continues to happen. And we need to put a stop to some of those things that are happening now to our elderly and our adults with disability population. So the next slide will talk about physical abuse. And with physical abuse, of course, it's the willful infliction or omission results in physical harm. It includes, but it's not limited to, the cruel punishment resulting in physical harm or pain or mental anguish. This is your direct physical abuse. These are the bruises that you see. This is the slapping, the kicking, the choking, or even burning sometimes that we hear about. They just came up to me real quickly, and my grandson just slapped me. My granddaughter, kicked me out of the way. And it's unreasonable physical restraints or confinement resulting in physical injury, holding them down physically, hurting them. We have to realize that our elderly population are frail at times, and holding them down in a certain way, moving them aside just to get them out of the way, may in fact harm them. And if you continue to do it in a manner that you just intentionally do it, there are issues that we need to take a look at in physical abuse in that manner. These are has not been one of the number one referrals that we get, but it is up there. We do see the physical abuse of our elderly population coming up. In regards to the next topic, which is sexual abuse, we do oftentimes see them, but not a lot. And that is, as I say, non-consensual sexual contact, including but not limited to the unwanted or inappropriate sexual gratification, your touching, your rape, your sodomy, your sexual coercion, sexual explicit photography, sexual harassment, um, innuendos, involuntary exposure to sexually explicit material or language, and as defined in our Penal Code of Guam. We take a look at both intent. Abuse is something in physical abuse that if we are given a referral, we go out there and do our investigation within 24 hours. That is what we take a look at, so we can document the type of abuse, document what we've seen physically on the individual, whether it be the bruising, whether it just be things that we can see that has happened to them. Maybe there were cuts and scrapes that have happened as they have fallen down. And of course, the sexual abuse, we have to take proper procedures in order to get, if there need be GPD involved, and other agencies and entities that will take a look at the physical and sexual abuse that happen to our elderly, to our adults with disabilities. Our next slide will talk about self-neglect. And self-neglect is characterized as behavior of the elderly or adult with disability that threatens his or her own safety. It generally manifests with the elderly adult with disability refusing to provide his or her with the adequate food, shelter, clothing, personal hygiene, medications, and safety precautions. A lot of times, elderly people, if they have some medical conditions, may not necessarily take their medications on time, may not necessarily think that they may have forgotten their medication. So over a period of time, if this continues to happen, they're not taking care of themselves. And a lot of times these are the people that live alone. There's not somebody to remind them. They may have forgotten and may have not eaten that day, may not have, like I say, adequate food in the refrigerator, in their cupboards, only because they're not able to go out or choose not to go out to do some of the grocery shopping that needs to happen. And so they in turn don't do these things for themselves. So as it is, it's self-neglect. They, for a long period of time, don't do these things, and they end up possibly in the hospital, possibly dehydrated, possibly really not caring properly for themselves. Therefore, it needs hospital intervention. This excludes a situation in which a mentally competent elderly or adult with a disability understands the consequences about these decisions that they make, and they make the conscious and voluntary decision to engage in these acts that threaten their safety, but it is a matter of their personal choice. We have to understand at times that this is what they choose, but at the same token, we have to educate them. We have to make sure that they continue to take good care of themselves and take a look at whether or not they're able to continue to live alone. Maybe at the time that we came in contact with them, that was at their most dire need, that we had to come in, and maybe with some supports that are put in place, they can be able to live back in the home that they're most comfortable in. However, we have to make sure that those supports are there for them. We have to make sure that there may be somebody out there that visits with them. We may refer them to case management sections that we have available in order for any of the case managers to go out and to maintain that there is contact with them so that this doesn't recycle and that they're able to live in the area that they've most comfortable in. Our next slide is it's elder abuse, know the signs of it by the Australian Human Rights Commission. And I'd like you to just take a look at this. And while you're viewing the video, think how our local community has its eyes closed at times to elder abuse. Think how you as an individual can address the issue locally and bring about an awareness and opening our eyes to elder abuse. I know that there might be maybe some questions that may be posed, and maybe after the video presentation, we can take some of those questions. It'll be up in a moment. Thank you for your patience.
Many Australians have their eyes closed when it comes to elder abuse. They don't see the signs and they don't recognise the behaviours. But if we open our eyes, we can see it. Elder abuse can be financial.
He said, Mum, I'll get the money for you.
She said she'd go to the bank for me and withdraw cash.
I gave him my card. He's my son.
And then I got a call from the bank manager.
I just couldn't believe what he told me.
Elder abuse can be physical.
First, he just raised his voice to me.
He yelled at me. And I'm sure he doesn't mean to be rough.
He makes me a bit afraid.
I never expected this from my daughter.
It can even be psychological.
He said I'm a burden.
And I made their life miserable. If I don't change my will, I can't see the grandkids again.
And he's my son.
It just breaks my heart. I've got no idea what I've done wrong.
It's time we all opened our eyes to elder abuse. If elder abuse is happening to you or to someone you know, call 1-800-ELDER-HELP. That's 1-800-353-374.
Okay. Maybe we could take a moment to look at some of the questions that have been posed by some of the participants. And I know that I've seen 2 right now, and I will just go ahead and read them and try to see how we can be able to answer these questions. And the first question is in regards to St. Dominic's. And the question is there a reason why St. Dominic's does not accept Medicare or private insurance for our Mañaina to be eligible to utilize their facility? And that's a good question, because a lot of times I do work with St. Dominic's, and I know that they do the MYP and not the Medicare or other private insurances. I can't say for a fact that why they do not take the Medicare or private insurance. I'm not aware why they can't. So I could probably take your name down and have a conversation after the presentation to be able to get that information back to you, why they're not eligible to utilize their facility with their Medicare. I'm going to guess that maybe Medicare also has certain restrictions or requirements that they need to follow, and maybe St. Dominic's is working towards those requirements. So I will find out that information and get back to the person that asked that question. The next one I have here, it's how many clients can you shelter at one time, and how long can you shelter them? In our emergency receiving home, through our contract with Catholic Social Services, at this point, we have 2 individuals. We, because of the pandemic, are not able to house more than the 2 that we have due to the spacing that is at the facility. We were able to do 4 because we would put 2 to a room. However, due to the pandemic, we are now only able to do 1 2-room. At this time, we have 2 spaces which are currently being occupied at this time. And we, at the shelter, take them for 45 days. Within the 45 days, we try to work out all the supports necessary to move them into alternative placements or to move them with other alternative family members as we continue to work out the situations from where they came from. We can allow an additional 45 days to continue the work that needs to be done. We do have a person in there that is court ordered. So also based on some court orders that may go on longer than our 45 days, but we work closely with the team who is working with that individual to move them into more alternative placements that assist them in the manner that they are back in their community or back into their home. I don't know if they have any other questions at this time. I see only the 2.
Evelyn, just wanted to point out
Yes.
there, in the chat, there was a question, and of course, with regards to the length of stay, and you answered that question. But another one was,
Okay.
I was just going through your slides, and would you be able to address then the statistics, such as the data of how many you have served, especially during the pandemic, or perhaps to date, what do the numbers look like?
Sure. I could do that, and I can talk to that now. What we do have is I do have the data from this fiscal year, which is October 20th to present May 2021. And how many referrals we have received so far is 150. And that is a high number. We usually range for the whole year, we usually get last year was 261. So we range from 260 to 300 and sometimes above that. But right now we have 150 referrals that we have received. And in regards to the types of abuses that have come in, our financial and property exploitation abuse is number 1 as we stand. Second to the emotional. Thirdly, we have the physical. And in that respect, we have 45 referrals that have come in thus far for financial and property exploitation. Second to 31, which are for our emotional and psychological abuse of our elderly and adults with a disability. And thirdly, we have our physical at 26 referrals we received. We go to neglect, which we have 19 referrals thus far. Self-neglect, we have 11. Abandonment, 8. We have others which we termed, like we had some with coincided with domestic violence and things like that, evictions, things that we had to go out to help kind of look at the situation. With our sexual abuse, we had 2 referrals thus far, which totaled 150 to date. If we're interested in the gender of male to female in our referrals received, we have female at 101 referrals received from our females, and we have 49 referrals received on males. And if you'd like to know also the breakdown with the elderly and the adults with the disability, for our elderly population, our Sainas, our Manamkos, our Manatas, we had 109 referrals, 109. When we take a look at that, that is a high number for me. When we take a look at having 10 referrals a week sometimes, that also is alarming. But we do get these referrals, and this is the stats that we have at this point in time. The top 3 ethnicities that come in are our Chamorro population at 91, second to the Filipino population at 34, and we have 5 Caucasian individuals that rank in the number 3 slot. So that is the stark reality of where we're at 150 within so many months of the year. Um, that's part of the being in a pandemic, but we still were able to know that there are these abuses that are happening in our homes and in our community. I'm not sure if we have any other
In
questions.
the
I do
in the
see there's
Q&A,
some.
yes.
Yeah, I do see there's some. And so it's like, is there help for elderly that are homeless? Is that considered? Yes, we do get people that are homeless. And we do work with the coalition, the homeless coalition, of course. And also there are people that work in the settings of the homeless population that provide for shelter for them. And so if we do have an elder lead that is homeless, we do also want to take a look at that and try to see why they are homeless. Um, I know it's really difficult to even to put an elderly person in our shelter. It's so different for them. And, we're taking them away from their family, their home sometimes. And to know that there is an elderly that's out there that is homeless is something that we want to take a look at also to see how we can provide a different type of shelter maybe for the elderly homeless population. Um, their issues may be different than somebody who is just homeless, and it may or may not be. Um, but we do work with some elderly people that come in that say they're homeless. May not have any abuse going on, but they are homeless. But we connect them to the proper agencies and proper services to them that are out there for homelessness. So abandonment by their family. Um, okay, that is a question. Abandonment by their family. I guess the question would be, if someone is abandoned by their family, you could call us if you have some information about the elder or adult with a disability who may be abandoned or may be living alone. I mentioned earlier, some of these people may be living alone. We need to take a look at the situation. We need to take a look at where they are at, what has happened, and then our workers will go out to investigate. But we do have had some people that have been abandoned. We had 8 referrals thus far on abandonment, either by family or person was abandoned at the hospital, and we had to intervene. And so there are different types of people that are abandoned, that are left at the hospitals, that are left alone, and the hospital was a setting where they were being taken care of medically, and then all of a sudden we didn't see the family. Hospital has been trying for a while to connect with family, and then we got involved to try to see what we could do to further assist the hospital in getting the family, especially if the person had a power of attorney, to respond. You can't leave your family in the hospital forever, and that is not right if you have the responsibilities that you were provided through your power of attorney and through your guardianship. So we have seen 8. If the question was abandonment by their family, how many? We have had 8 referrals. If you receive a referral on an elderly abusive case, how soon do you contact the individual? We have 7 days to make initial contact. We have 14 day, 60 day, 90 day. We have different phases in which we take a look at the investigation portion of it. We do have to make a determination on the referral up to 90 days, but we like to make those referrals either substantiated, unsubstantiated, try to get in as much information as we can to do that, to move forward the case, whether it need to be going to the Attorney General's office or otherwise. So I hope that answered your question. We do have 7 days initially to respond. And then after that, once we get all the information, then we work with whoever we need to work with to do the support, to obtain more information to provide, so that if this does go to the Attorney General's office, then we declare that we have found evidence enough to say that this could go to court, that we need to move this on forward, and the Attorney General's office will work with us to take a look at that and then proceed in making the proper necessary things that they need to do on the side of the courts. Okay, recently, I think Senator Shelton created a task force to address issues to improve programs and or services or program needs assessment for senior citizens. Is your division or department head of that task force? And if so, has the task force met and are there plans to assist your office with personnel, resources, etc.? I'm concerned about the many cases we have. Sinas are precious. Thank you very much for that question. Yes, there was a task force created, and I'm certain that we are on that. I have not sat in on the task force per se, but I think somebody from our division here is there. I do appreciate that you know that we do need the personnel, we do need the resources, because we do have a lot of cases. I do appreciate that you see and view that our signers are as precious as I view them to be as well. Thank you for that. We are working real closely with Senator Shelton. She has been really great person working together with some of our activities and things that we need to move forward for our division. The next question is, where can we go when we see a family member that needs help or intervention? Children are all adults. Children are all adults. No one lives at home except for spouse who we suspect some type of abuse. I'll answer, where do we go when we see a family member that needs help or intervention? It really depends on the situation. If it's an adult that needs intervention, adult with a disability, an elder 60 years and above, please contact our department. If you're looking at children who do have difficulties or are in challenging times, there is Child Protective Services. There are other agencies or nonprofit out there. If people need to go to shelter, women who are battered, who need to take their children out of these situations, there is the Ali shelter. People who need to get themselves out of the situations, they can go to Guma San Jose, which is another shelter. But it depends on the situation and the type of interventions that are needed. If the person or this person who is calling has a particular situation that we need to speak, you can contact me offline after the presentation. At the end, we will give you our contact numbers. But depending on the situation, we would like to make sure that we provide you with the appropriate resources or appropriate areas in which you can get the needed assistance for that particular intervention that is necessary. So how many staff do you have to respond to all these cases? I like the anonymous attendee who's asked me all these questions. As you saw in my first slide, it's myself and two other gentlemen that staff the Adult Protective Services. So a total of 3. And we try as much as we can, our best, to get to all these referrals in a timely manner because we are mandated to do so. Another question is, if spaces are limited, what happens to the referrals that are made? If spaces are limited. I'm not certain about the if spaces are limited, but what happens to the referrals that are made? The referrals come to us either by them being called in or them being dropped off at the drop box at our office. We also allow at this point in time, due to the pandemic, that referrals can be sent via fax. We just ask that you call our office so that when the fax is being transmitted, that we are available to take to accept their referral, and that we will call you back with the contact number that you have left us with in order to confirm the receipt of that referral. We take all referrals. There is no limit at this time. I'm not sure what the spaces limited means, but we don't have like a cap that we put on every year and say we are capped at 500 or capped at 200. No, we will accept every referral. We need to investigate what comes to our office. So the next question is, there is a concern regarding emergency shelter, the space. Yes, we have called APS for services for an elderly with disability who have been physically and emotionally abused on a couple of separate occasions, and there was no space. What does one do next? And should we continue to call APS to see if a space opens up? Thank you. I think you could continue. If there is a spacing issue at the time, we certainly would want to work with you on what we can do to provide the supports. If there is, you're saying that there has been physical and emotional abuse on a couple on separate occasions, we'd like to be able to get that information, because if it's physical abuse, it's separate from the emotional, or if it's going on at the same time, we'd like to take a look at that right away, because we'd like to be able to set up whatever parameters there are in order to provide this support. We may not have the availability of the emergency shelter space, but we certainly can look at other avenues to continue to keep that person safe, whether it be working with other nonprofit organizations, placing them in a shelter there, working with them to provide supports that we can help them to, and then working with our case management for services outside once we maintain the situation or contain it. So I hope that answers your question. If there's still some discussion that need to, I certainly am open to discussing that with you at a later time. Are the referrals kept confidential? They are. Any referral, you can refer your call in a referral and you can remain anonymous. However, all things are kept confidential in respect to any information that we get, any information that we receive from any of the referrals are kept confidential. The next question is, there are programs in the mainland which allows family members to be compensated by the state for caring for their elderly family member in their home. Thus, they are not so worried about leaving their jobs to care for their sinas. Is this something that we may consider? I'm happy with that question because I have been in conversation before about the ability to look at compensating our family members. Yes, it is something that has been discussed, and yes, it is something I hope that we can bring to the table, possibly again with Senator Shelton. But it is something that is maybe idealistic in that we want to keep the elderly, our sinas, in the homes that they are most comfortable in. And if they have the family members that will be able to caretake for them, they are the best people that should be caretaking for them because they have their best interest at heart, so to say. But yes, we'd like to take a look at being able to provide some sort of financial compensation to family members who wish to do this. It is very difficult if you are a wage earner in your family and now you are faced with the reality of having to take care of your elder parents. So yes, it is something that you would like to do. However, you still need to maintain your household as well. So that is something that we would like to consider. And if the person who wrote that question may want to be part of those discussions, I welcome that. And the next one, are you aware of any private initiatives to construct and operate assisted living residences or nursing homes on Guam that might be eligible for Medicare or private insurances? There is talk about assisted living residences. Not so much. I know assisted living. We are involved with some of those discussions. We meaning the Division of Senior Citizens have talked about assisted living amongst ourselves here as a group, and we are looking at the Medicare and private insurance in order that they might be able to use those types of things to care and pay for assisted living. It has been talked about. It is something that we hope to be able to. There are a lot more things that we could do, and I like that there's a lot of interaction and a lot of discussion on different things that, positive things. We are talking about abuse and neglect, something that is not so positive. But when I see your questions and when I hear all this, it's very heartwarming to know that yes, we need these kinds of things. And yes, our community is saying we need to look at assisted living. We need to look at compensation. We need to look at how are we going to better prepare and protect our elderly, our sinas, because it is us now, the generation that will be taking care of our elderly parents. And we, the generation now, need to know, is there such thing as assisted living? Will there be such thing as assisted living within the coming years? I mean, I can't say within the coming weeks, but hopefully within the coming years, can we be able to, as a community, say that that is what is needed? We need a lot of programs. We need a lot of services that you, the people who are on this webinar, has made mention to, and there has been discussions that I've known before, even before coming to public health. I've heard about assisted living and have been in some of these discussions. So thank you for that, and we want to be able to. Yes, there are talks, and anybody out there who wants to be a part of it, please, come forward. Bring your ideas to the table. It's a community effort. It really is. Should reports of elderly abuse be to you, the police, or both? I think that if it has to be both. If there is something that is of imminent danger happening at the moment that you know about it, please ask for GPD assistance. And all, because we want to make sure the safety, of course, is there and protected, and then please report to us as well of the abuse that you see. If there's something that is really emergency that's happening, and then the elder or the adult with a disability needs to be hospitalized, please call 911, call GPD, call anybody you have to get that service met. And also call our agency to report the abuse on that elder. So if you provide a shelter for the elder, can APS provide case management? We do have a case management service. We do have that with Health Services of the Pacific. I would also like to talk, because every case or every referral is individual to itself. So can we provide the case management? We would need to take a look at what is present at hand, and maybe that the person is already with our case management services. We just need to reconnect them. We can certainly find that out. But certainly if there is a need for case management services, we would like to take a look at it. And that is case by case basis. So, if their shelter is with wherever you're working at, and we can provide supports to that, we certainly would like to come to the table and talk about those things and see how we can blend all our resources. It is wonderful to blend resources. It is something that is necessary here on Guam. We all have limited resources. We all come from different walks of life, different areas that we are professional in. But the bottom line is, it is community. It is what is there and what is out for Guam. What can we offer our sinas? What can we offer our adults with disabilities? Great questions. When I called St. Dominic's to provide care for a sina who does not qualify for MIP, the family would have to pay $800 per day. I'm sure their care is worth every penny, but who can afford that? We are in dire need of discussion to help sinas and their families. Wonderful question. Yes, St. Dominic's has become expensive, for one. A lot of people that don't qualify for the MIP, of which they accept, self-pay is quite expensive. And yes, the care is worth every penny. But there continues to be that discussion. There are a lot of discussions that need to happen, and that being one of them, that being assistive assisted care facilities. How can our elderly manage the much needed care they need in the stages that they're at as they get older? And how are they able to pay for these things? How can we as a community find ways in which we can be creative and we can see if there are other alternatives to care? We have health nurses coming out there. However, maybe we need to improve that. We need to get more out there. But yes, it is expensive. Nothing is cheap anymore. It never was. But as we get older, it gets much more expensive with the medical care that is needed. I'm hoping to have more discussions with a lot of you after this presentation, because we have a lot of good questions, a lot of things on the chat that's going on. And very good questions. I'm not too sure how we're doing on time. It looks like maybe people may need a break.
Actually, I was just going to come in.
I'm just so happy about those questions. They're really good questions, really good. Come to the table with me and let's talk questions.
Yes.
I'm excited. I mean, though it's a hard thing to talk about abuse, but look how much that we as a community has talked about what we can do with all the
Yes,
different.
definitely. And I know you've prompted quite a number of questions, very thought-provoking questions as well. So to give you a break and also to our attendees, let's take a break at this point and we'll be back, let's say at the top of the hour. So if there are any other questions that come into mind, you can put that in the chat and we'll review that before she starts, or at least we'll get her going for the next half. So thanks for joining us, and we will go into a break at this time.
See you back then.
Yes. Hapaday, and welcome back to the second half with Evelyn Manibusan, speaking more about elder abuse and, of course, addressing the services that they provide with the Bureau of Adult Protective Services. And that's with our Department of Public Health and Social Services. Yes, with a team of three, they are certainly the mighty three who address our elders and care for our elders as well. And as was noted too, she does emphasize that reaching out to everyone to be part of the solution. So we'll wait for a moment to call on Evelyn so that we can begin. But meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can post that in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll be able to call attention to your questions and have Evelyn respond to those. So I see that she's logging in shortly, and the team here is ready to put up your slides whenever you are, Evelyn. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Welcome back. All right, I do have a question that's on the question and answer. And the question goes, on referrals, will we get feedback on the case? My thoughts on that is we do not provide feedback on the entire investigation, but we certainly can provide feedback to you if you were the referring party, in that if you wanted to know, did we connect with the individual? Were we able to at least talk with them? We can certainly let you know that the investigation has started. We can certainly let you know that we have made contact with the individuals of which you are concerned about, but we won't be able to give you full information on the investigation that continues at hand. And that is the question that it was posed during the break. Okay. Our next portions as we go into possibly the second half of this is we are at a point where we are going to, I think we showed the video on the Australian Human Rights Commission. Of course, we wanted you to just think of yourself about our local community and how its eyes were closed at times to elder abuse. And we also want you to think about how we could address these. And we had a lot of discussion in the questions that were posed. And so with that, we take that in mind about what we need to do as we move forward here. And I'm okay. Our next slide will be about elder abuse and some facts about elder abuse. So here are some things that everyone should know about. It is taken from the National Center of Elder Abuse in conjunction with the Keck School of Medicine at USC and the Administration of Community Living. And they just put a fact sheet about elder abuse. And what it is about 1 in every 10 Americans aged 60 or above have experienced abuse. Without decent health care and public resources, our population becomes more at risk for abuse as we age. And the impact of elder abuse is felt by people of all ages. Elder abuse also reduces the older person's participation in the life of our communities. That is where they become more socially isolated. They do not do a lot of the activities, get out in the community as they were so used to before. Elder abuse creates healthcare and legal costs that are often carried by public programs like Medicare and Medicaid. And as I said before, it is up to all of us to prevent and address elder abuse. It is a community issue. It is one that we had a lot of discussion on earlier, and hope to, as we move forward, continue more of those discussions that will help to provide much needed services that we see as a community that our elder, our sainas, our manamkuls need at this point. So with that said, we want to talk about some of the long-term care and along with the ombudsman program. So here is the Division of Senior Citizens on the next slide. On the next slide, we talk about the ombudsman program. And what it is we have different facilities here that are identified ombudsman connects with, talks to the residents at facilities such as St. Dominic's, goes out to our adult daycare centers, our senior centers when they were opened prior to our pandemic. And what that person does is they go and they ask if there's any things that may be bothering them with some of the treatment that they've been receiving at these centers, at St. Dominic's, and they help to work towards resolving some of these. They may be related to their health, they may be related to safety, or even the welfare of themselves at their facilities. And they make sure that the rights of their individuals who are living, the rights are respected to the individuals living in these long-term care facilities. And so our identified ombudsman who goes out, he takes care of our St. Dominic Senior Home Care, our adult daycare centers, senior centers around the island, and also a residential facility with Guam behavioral called Guma and Susana. So if there are any residents within those identified facilities, they're able to talk with the individual, let them know that they may be having some challenges, some difficulties within the facility, and the ombudsman then helps to resolve some of those issues for the elder. And so in resolving some of these concerns for the elder, what the ombudsman will do is he or she, we have a male social worker that goes out to these places, and the person identifies, investigates the problems, resolves any complaints made by or on behalf of the residents there. So that would be on my next slide. And you provide information, he provides information to the residents about the long-term services and supports. So there are things that the residents may need to know about their long-term care. There might be some issues that they want to know what will happen as I continue to remain here at St. Dominic's, what will happen if I, don't go to the senior centers anymore. At this point in time, it can be anything that they may have concern with. So the person ensures that residents have regular and timely access to the ombudsman services, and the services that he goes out to their facilities to have conversations with them, to have presentations with them on his role and responsibility as the ombudsman. And he represents their interest as the residents before any government agencies. He seeks legal advice for them, and he provides some comments, and he recommends changes in any laws or regulations pertaining to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents within those areas. So our next slide will talk about the person himself. And from the Department of Public Health and Social Services, the identified ombudsman for us is Mr. Rages. People may know him as Bill. So Bill has been the local ombudsman for Guam. He has the same contact numbers as I have, which is 735-7415 or 735-7421. And as I mentioned earlier, we can be contacted evening, weekends, and holidays through the contact number of the crisis intervention, which is 632-8853. And so Mr. Rages, Bill's responsibilities, as I said, is to go to these residents' homes and just talk with them, see how everything's doing, if they have any concerns. I mean, the concerns could be just as simple as the meals, something they didn't like in the meal. And so we'll see how we can resolve the issue with meals, resolve the issues with visitation, resolve the issues with other things that they may be having a difficulty with while they reside in these facilities, or as they go to the centers to have their activities during the day once the centers reopen. I know at the time of the pandemic, we were doing a lot of phone conversations, a lot of things with the facilities via the telephone. So that is the Ombudsman program. To say a short thing on that they do most of the resolutions within these facilities. An important topic, of course, as well is mandated reporters. And so if people are interested, we do have a listing of who are mandated reporters. And it could be any person who in the course of your employment, your occupation, your profession, you have knowledge of the reason to believe that an elder or an adult with a disability is suffering from or has died as a result of abuse. So in your work activities, if you are in the hospital-like setting, if you're in the medical profession, you are mandated to report these issues of abuse and neglect that have come to your attention. We look at the physicians, we look at medical interns as part of our mandated reporters. We look at medical examinators, we have nurses, your chiropractors. If you're in the hospital setting and you're personal engaged in the admissions of the person, examination of the person, care or treatment of the person who is hospitalized, you are a mandated reporter. If you are a social worker in the field of social work, wherever it may be, if you are in the school setting, if you're an APS APS person, if you're a CPS person, of course, you are mandated if you see outside to report and act on those referrals. Social workers in other fields as well are mandated reporters. We also have employees in nursing homes. So people in nursing homes are all mandated reporters. Senior citizen centers and our adult care facilities on island, those people who work there, who are in contact with our elderly population, as well as our adults with disabilities who have access to these services and have come with some abuse or neglect issues, they are mandated to report. Of course, we have our police and our probation officers, our employees of homemaker and home health service agencies, health service of the Pacific agencies, agencies such as our home visiting nurses. If they see anything in the course of their work with the individual, they are mandated to report. Our emergency medical service providers that go out there to assist also may be in contact with somebody who may have a bruise, who may have disclosed some information regarding how they've been treated at the home. They are our mandated reporters as well. You have your non-emergency medical transport providers that provide those medical transports to the hospital, to the clinics. If they are in contact with these individuals who may have suspected abuse or neglect, they also too are mandated reporters. If you are a medical or allied healthcare provider, another thing is if you work at a bank or any financial institution, if you are a teller at a bank, if you work as a manager at a bank, and an individual may come in with somebody else withdrawing large amounts of money that you see on a regular basis, and there's some concern about that, then you have the right, you are mandated to report that to us so that we can take a look at whether or not what is going on is possibly financial abuse. Pension providers, people who are practicum students in the field of any health and human services. In the course of your practicum study, if you are out there with a person and visiting a home and you suspect or see, you and your field instructor need to report what you saw, what you see, what has happened within that home that you may have visited as an intern student. So you are also considered a mandated reporter. So as you are considered mandated reporters, there is also immunity from liability. And that means that If you, in good faith, do report what you have seen, you are immune from any civil or criminal liability for reporting or testifying. So if you don't, of course, there are some fines that are going to be imposed if we should intervene. We should find that there's just cause that you should have, or the agency or the person that this information was provided to failed to report, you are liable for a fine not more than $500 on the first offense. If this continues, and we see that there has been for subsequent offenses after that, shall be guilty. A person shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. So we take that very serious, that we do need to know, we bond to refer and to act in the best interests of the persons that you are receiving this information from the person who may be at the hospital setting, or a person in the course of their home visits can and need to report. So, and how do you report, when to report, what to report, would be in our next slides. How to report. So as we spoke earlier about the Act, the Adult Protective Services Act, which is Public Law 31-278, it requires you out of Section 2952 to, if you have actual knowledge, this is something that came to you, that you were informed about, and you have reason to believe that an elder or the adult with a disability is suffering or has died as a result of an abuse, you are to report. And you are asked to report immediately, to make a verbal report to APS. If you've gotten this information, we'd like the information to be transmitted to our office. Within 48 hours, you make a written report to CPS. Once you call it in, we will take that information with you over the phone. We always have asked that you turn in your written report. Just as we do have the information that we have taken down through the telephone, we also need to have the written report by you as submitted so that we can put that in as the whole referral package. You should call GPD. I think there was this question earlier. You need to call GPD, your paramedics, your 911 immediately if someone is in a life-threatening situation. If there is danger involved with it, if you suspect that this is not a good thing, then you get the authorities involved. You get GPD to come out to the home and do what they need to do. If there is a need to call paramedics or even 911, please act on that immediately. And then the report of such abuse will subsequently come after all those have taken care of. We need to take a look at the safety at the time that the incident has occurred, the safety of the elderly, and the safety of the adult with the disability. So you can report to us. And what we need to get, or information that we need to obtain from the referring party, is of course the name and contact information of the alleged abuser, as well as the alleged victim. We need to identify the person making the report, and as I mentioned earlier, these are all information that is kept confidential. We need a name, we need an address, and we need the approximate age of the elderly or adult with a disability. We need to determine the age, of course, and also if the adult is with a disability, we also need to know the age of that individual person. We need to know the name of the person or persons responsible for causing the suspected abuse. Everything's suspected until we make the investigation and we final our investigation and conclude it with a substantiated or an unsubstantiated decision. So the information regarding the nature and extent of the abuse, please give us as much information as possible of what has gone on, what you have been told, and if there's any caretakers involved, any medical treatment that was received or required due to this abuse or neglect, we'd like to make sure that we get that information. So rule of thumb, any information which may assist in any of our investigations, we would like that information be presented to us and also be written in the written documentation that would be forwarded to our office. Where do we report? We are open, of course, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can place a report within those hours. We are the Bureau of Adult Protective Services, Division of Senior Citizens, and we are at the contact numbers 735-7415 or 735-7421. Evenings, weekends, and holidays through our crisis, 24-hour crisis intervention hotline, Gumasaranadad, operate out of Catholic Social Services. You can contact them at 632-8853 to make your referral on any abuse or neglect that happens after hours, weekends, and holidays. Most especially, once again, if you need the assistance of the Guam Police Department, the paramedics, or 911, please do so immediately if someone is in immediate or life-threatening danger. Our next slide will talk a little bit about strengthening the structure of justice, and in a small video presentation taken from the National Center of Elder Abuse, and it can be found on YouTube. And what I'd like you to do is just to take a look at the little presentation and look into the community resources that are addressed in our community, the health, happiness, and safety of our individuals, our elders, and adults with disabilities. Shortly, we will see the video presentation.
A just society works to make sure everyone is free from the threat of abuse at every stage of life. To live up to our ideal of justice for all, we need to work to address the social issue of elder abuse. It's important to understand what creates the risk of experiencing abuse or neglect as we age. A strong and just society is like a structure, supported by many beams. We need strong beams that are frequently maintained. You can think of these beams as the policies and programs that reinforce the relationships and resources needed for health, happiness, and safety. When those support beams are missing or not maintained, the structure is weaker and may not meet our expectations that people are able to live free from maltreatment. The first and most important step to prevent elder abuse is to reduce social isolation. George, age 77, reminds us why this is important. George spends most of his time at home alone since his wife died. His daughter lives too far away to visit regularly, and his neighborhood lacks reliable public transit and many age-friendly civic spaces. Fewer social interactions mean fewer opportunities for walking, talking, and laughing. And with these normal, healthy experiences missing, George's physical, cognitive, and emotional health have gotten worse. His daughter does not know what she can do or where she can turn for help. Without the structure of support, it's easy to see how if George encountered an unsafe situation, the problem might go unnoticed. George's story of social isolation is not uncommon. With millions of our fellow Americans living in similar situations, it's fair to say that our nation's social structure needs repair. Just as one beam alone can't support a building, individuals and family members alone can't single-handedly manage the problem of social isolation and the corresponding risk of maltreatment. The good news is that there are many ways to strengthen our social supports through policies, services, and programs that keep us integrated in our communities as we age. We can design and equip community centers to work as intergenerational spaces that allow older people to build relationships and participate in the work, play, and life of our neighborhoods. We can think about the role of transportation and reducing social isolation and adjust systems so that we can all continue to move throughout our communities as we age. We can figure out new and better ways to arrange and coordinate the teams, agencies, and programs that specifically work with older people. We can develop programs to educate families and professionals who work with older adults to understand the importance of preventing isolation, how to spot the warning signs of maltreatment, and what to do to address abuse or neglect. By doing all we can to strengthen the social support structure, we can reduce social isolation, protect communities and families against elder abuse, and build a nation that lives up to our promise of justice for all. Learn more and see how you can get involved in preventing elder abuse and promoting greater justice for older people at ncea.acl.gov.
Okay. That was the structure for strengthening our structure for justice. And I think that was a very important tool to take a look at elder abuse and what we need to do in our communities to strengthen our ties, to do intergenerational programs with our younger generation so that they can understand the importance of our elders. Our next slide will talk about some of our supportive services that we have here. I do see a question, two questions on the chat. I will get through this first slide that I have up, and then we'll see about taking care of those questions. So in regards to supportive services, the Division of Senior Citizens has many different programs that they operate, and one being the adult daycare services. So we have adult daycares that are available to our elderly population who can go during the daytime for activities, you know, to be able to socialize with other elders of their ages. We also have case management services. So in regards to continuing to support the elder after we've determined that there are challenges within the home, that a case manager may be needed, we can make referrals to our case management services so they on the outpatient side of it can continue to provide services. We have in-home services for our elders 60 years on above. They come into your home to do a little light housekeeping, to do a little of your hygiene with you, to help you along the way daily, depending upon how much you would need the type of service. Legal assistance services is something that we have worked on for many years, and we're happy to say at this point in time, we are now partnering with the Public Defender Services Corporation, and we are now offering legal assistance services through our Elder Justice Center. And the Elder Justice Center was just opened this past May. So we're happy to say that we do have some services that the seniors can avail to. They can call the Elder Justice Center to find out what type of services, such as if they would need a power of attorney, if they would need some legal inquiry regarding some property or things like that. We could take a look at that. Guardianship, last will and testament, things of that nature is something that our Elder Justice Center can address. We have senior center operations, which we have 12 centers within our island. Those are our senior centers that our seniors go to have daily activities, to have a meal with their fellow seniors. That at this point in time is not open due to the pandemic, but once we open our senior centers, then we'll see our seniors back again at our centers. We do have transportation services for our seniors, and this is to help them to go to their clinic appointments. We do have the elderly nutrition program. A lot of people are most familiar with the Meals on Wheels type of a program. So this is our meals program, and we do provide it to our congregate setting at the centers, and we also provide it home delivered meals to those who are unable to access the meal at the center. We do have preventive health for seniors so that they can do some like exercising, some things that they could do to help maintain their health. We have the National Family Caregiver Support Program, and they support the person who is the caregiver to the elderly. We have that to provide to them so that they continue the hard work that they do in providing the service for their elderly. Before we go into the question, just want to give you a little general idea how to access the services that was just mentioned earlier. And the next slide talks to that general guidelines for accessing services. The services are provided to older individuals 60 years of age and older. So you have to be 60 years of age in order to access some of the services. Except for the National Family Caregiver Support Program, the client can be at least 55 years of age. The provisions and services are based on your age, your need, and your desire, not on your ethnicity, not on your religion or social or political status. If you are age 60 and there is a need for you to have a meal, then we will work towards providing that for you. Only requirement requires that you live in Guam. That if you are going to receive the services, such as a meal, of course, you have to be on Guam. You're going to receive transportation service, you have to be on Guam. So that being provided to you while you're on Guam, you don't have to be a Guam voter or a US citizen, and those are not required. Just have to do the age, the need and desire to need this type of services at the time. So I'll take a look at the questions, the 2 questions that are posed, and see what we could do to get that answered for the person. So the question is, if you had the full support of the powers that be and looking at your mission and services, what would be the top 3 challenges or concerns you address immediately to directly help our Sainas? Wow, that's a nice question. I have full support of the powers that be. That would be ideal. But in the world I live in, the challenges that I would look at right off the top would be, we need to be out there, be more, provide more awareness to the fact that our island does have individuals that are abused and neglected. We do see that as a challenge. I would like to have more staffing to address these issues. But I would also like to bring back the spirit, of course, of intergenerational, so that we can teach our younger generations the precious ideas and the precious words of wisdoms that our elderly possess, and that they need to hear from our elderly to learn that this is what we are lacking sometimes is respect, and we need to bring that back. I would like to address a lot of things in terms of connectiveness, in terms of just being able to provide resources. Resources are challenging at times. So my list can go on and on. But I like the idea that I was able to have a moment to say, this is what's needed. We need to be able to address these issues. We need to be able to be sensitive to these issues and address them in a sensitive manner, where our elderly, our manamko, our Sainas are not afraid, are not wanting to let us know, and not keeping it inside till it really, really hurts them. So I hope I could do that. I hope that with the support and with the community as well, that we can begin to have these talks, these challenging talks that will bring about awareness, will bring about and bring back the respect of our elderly, so that we can curb this thing of abuse and neglect in our community. The second question is posed, is skilled nursing unit part of the ombudsman program? I know that the skilled nursing unit our ombudsman does have contact with. We will take a look at addressing that and including that. I know that he has gone out to address some issues at the skilled nursing unit. I know that he primarily goes to St. Dominic's and the facilities that I mentioned earlier. But certainly, thank you for that question. We are not without talking with skilled nursing unit, but maybe we need to zone in and talk more to them. Thank you for that. The next comment, I guess, was thank you. Your top 3 awareness, staffing, and spirit of intergeneral structure is excellent. Thank you. It's not been something that hasn't been discussed. It just may be needing to bring back to the table. Yes, staffing is always one, but I think awareness is key. And awareness of the types of things that are happening on our island. We are a small island people. We need to take care of our elderly, and we need to take care of adults with disabilities for them to be able to share their knowledge and their wisdom and what they've gone through. These are our forefathers, and these are said. I do have, if there are any more questions, comments, we can see if we can take a look at that now. I do have one last slide. It's a video. I don't know if it might go over time. Do we need to close off at 11 o'clock? What we'll do is we can go ahead and start it. And I ended with the what is called the celebration of the Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander. And I know that people may have heard this, but it is the AANHPI Heritage Month. And so I was looking through a lot of stuff to coincide the closing of my presentation. And this seems so befitting because it is, as a Pacific Islander, we are to celebrate our Heritage Month. And in celebrating this, I want to be proud of being a Pacific Islander. And with that respect, to bring back the respect that we all live by for our elders and adults with a disability. And this whole presentation is a celebration through community, and it's highlighting our diverse tapestry. And it was actually just aired because of the Heritage Month. And so I want you to look through these talks, not that they only represent our heritage, but represent our resiliency, not only as a community, but as a people. We are a people of Pacific Islanders. We should be proud of our heritage. We should bring back our ways of life, the culture, and our respect. We need to heal from within the abuse and neglect that continues, with the need to bring back the respect of our elderly. Although this tapestry does highlight the hate against the Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, it is in bringing back our culture that we begin to heal. And as a community and as a Pacific Islander in our America. So I know it may be a long presentation, but if we get a cut, we could give you the link if you'd like to on your own. Just preview that. I'm looking at the comment. I'm sorry, but this person had raised her hand, but no one called on her. I'm so sorry. Would there be a question that you can put on the chat or a comment? We could get to that before this presentation if we could do that. Okay, I'm sorry. If somebody could let me know if her question is on, it's not on the question answer. Was there a comment? Okay, all right. The person's gonna call me, so please, I will connect with you after the presentation. Okay. Okay, thank you. Are we able to put the presentation up? Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy it. It's very lengthy, but it really speaks to us as a people, as a Pacific Islander, and of our heritage.
Hello, everyone. Jill and I are honored to welcome you to the celebration of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
We have a wonderful program in store that reflects the depth and the diversity of this community, whose achievements, cultures, and contributions have enriched America across the generations. You'll hear from artists, advocates, and public servants whose courageous family journeys tell the story of America.
And this celebration embodies a simple truth of the very idea of America, that every person is created equal and deserves to be treated equally throughout their lives. But as we know, the truth has too often been elusive for far too many. While the AA and NHPI communities are on the front lines of helping us beat this pandemic, Asian Americans in particular are on the front lines of a rise in hate crimes and xenophobia that continues to stain the very soul of our nation. It's wrong. It's un-American. We must all stand together and lift up the dignity, safety, and equality of all people.
And as we do, let us all find strength and joy in each other and in the nation we love. Let us imagine the possibilities of all that lies ahead with light and hope leading the way.
Together, let's do the hard work ahead of beating the pandemic, building our economy back better, and advancing racial equity across our nation. Together, let us be who we are at our best as fellow Americans, as the United States of America. There's nothing we can't do if we do it together. God bless you all, and enjoy this wonderful celebration.
Thank you, Mr. President and Dr. Biden, for that warm welcome. And welcome to all of you to tonight's celebration of Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, AA and NHPI as we've come to know it. Those 6 letters in one acronym bring together millions of Americans, but they can hide the complexity and the diversity within our community. In a year that's challenged us in so many ways, our communities have come to realize how intricately our cultural threads are interwoven into the fabric of American life, a fabric made stronger because of our diversity. Chinese, Japanese, Indian, Korean, Filipino, Thai, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, or Pakistani like me. These are just a few of the 50 different ethnic groups in our community, all united in our common identity as Americans, and all united by the American ideals of equality, justice, and freedom, all invited here to make better lives for our families. Our community, in turn, contributes back to this country to make this American tapestry not only more beautiful, but more resilient. Tonight, we'll hear from AA and NHPI community members from across America, both names you'll immediately recognize and those you may be meeting for the first time. People you may see on TV and people you may see on the street where you live. Tonight, all of their stories and all of their voices are coming together to celebrate our community. Here now to welcome everyone on behalf of public media, our President and Chief Executive Officer of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Pat Harrison, and President and Chief Executive Officer of PBS, Paula Kerger.
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Biden, and Vice President Harris for hosting this special event tonight with the Center for Asian American Media and Pacific Islanders in Communications. I'm Pat Harrison, President and CEO of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB. We serve as the steward of the federal appropriation, support that puts the public in public media, ensuring that the diverse stories that are part of America's heritage and history are told. As America's storyteller, public media provides a platform for voices that might otherwise not be heard. We are a proud funder of the National Multicultural Alliance, of which CAM and PIC are members. And in this tumultuous past year, public media, through local and national news coverage, public affairs programming, documentaries, and virtual forums, address the rise of violence against the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Tonight, we're coming together to affirm and celebrate Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month with great appreciation, and we look forward to a wonderful evening.
Hello, I'm Paula Kerger, President and CEO of PBS. And I'd like to thank the Center for Asian American Media and Pacific Islanders in Communications for hosting this celebration of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. As America's home for documentaries, PBS has a long-standing commitment to stories that deepen awareness, foster dialogue, and illuminate the many ways in which diversity makes our country stronger. Through programs such as the critically acclaimed Asian Americans, the Chinese Exclusion Act from American Experience, The Donut King from Independent Lens, and Amy Tan Unintended Memoir from American Masters, just to name a few. Over the coming months and years, we will continue to present programs that honor the extraordinary contributions of Asian Americans. And in partnership with our more than 330 member stations, we will use our national platform and community presence to help create a society in which every human life is valued and every person is treated equally with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you, Paula. And now to a message from the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, or KPAC. She served in the U.S. House of Representatives since July of 2009 and was the first Chinese American woman elected to Congress in American history. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair of KPAC, Congressmember Judy Chu.
Asian Pacific American Heritage Month is an important time to celebrate the rich history and contributions of the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community. And it's also a chance to celebrate how far we've come with a record 21 AAPI members of Congress and our first ever woman, Asian, and Black Vice President, Kamala Harris. But this has also been a challenging year for the AAPI community as we continue to struggle with higher infection mortality rates and long-term unemployment rates due to the coronavirus pandemic. And in the midst of all of this, we've also experienced a shocking spike in anti-Asian hate with over 6,600 anti-Asian incidents reported in the last year alone. Despite what a challenging year it's been for the AAPI community, I'm encouraged by the overwhelming support that we've seen from all sectors, from our colleagues in the Congressional Black and Hispanic caucuses in Congress, to religious groups, to businesses and community leaders. And AAPIs have another important ally, and that is the President of the United States, Joe Biden, who's made it clear that hate against the Asian American community is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. I'm proud to have such strong allies because we know that we are strengthened by our diversity and that an attack on one of us is an attack on all. That is why this Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, I'm proud to celebrate the way that in the face of unprecedented challenges, AAPIs and all communities of color banded together to expand civil rights and stop Asian hate. So thank
What happened?
you again, and happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Thank you, Congressmember Judy Chu.
Sorry, we're just going to stop the video here to answer a few more questions.
Okay. What we'll do is we will go ahead and provide the link to that. It's a lengthy, as I said, it's a lengthy video. It's really one that if you have the time to take a look at, that will be something that you could do. We will provide that to you. We have a few more questions or comments that we'd like to get to. Okay. Are we going to go through the chat and get the questions out of the chat? There was a question on the chat as to how long can an elderly person remain housed at the adult shelter considering that the family or home is not considered safe. At the adult emergency, it's an emergency receiving home. So it is, as I said, 45 days, can extend another 45 days. But what we try to do is work with all the supports that need to. If the family home is not considered safe and there may be alternative placements, maybe in another home, family home, that we can then place the elderly person with the supports, and we need to take a look at what other options we have. But for the emergency receiving home, we have 45 days, can go an additional 45 days. We do have individuals that have been there longer. So it's based upon the, I guess, the individual need and how we need to work towards getting the supports and getting the alternative placements available for them. Hope that answered your questions. If you want to talk more about that, I can make myself available to you. There was another thing about what can you do when an elderly person has a mental illness and does not cooperate with caring family members for his or her own well-being? Is the police involved at times during investigation at the home? Based on, I would say, based on the situation, of course, at hand, everybody's situation is different. So if the person has a mental illness, we do collaborate with Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center in order to see if there is already a connection with maybe their case workers, their social workers, or maybe a connection with the medical clinic that they run for their patients. So maybe if there is a connection, we would work with them to coordinate the service. Maybe if the person is not connected, we would try to see how we can connect them. You asked even if police is involved at times during the investigation of the house, and sometimes that may be needed if there is a need for the safety of the worker going out to the home, for even the safety of the person in the home who we may need that intervention. We may go out with GPD. We've gone out with GPD for just wellness checks with the elderly, just so that we know that they're okay. Things are being taken care of. We will use GPD in the instance where we need to protect ourselves, protect the individual that we're going to see, and just protect the whole situation. But we do work with Guam Behavioral for the mental illness portion of it, so that we can connect them with the appropriate agency that can provide that service. So another thing is, the KHA hotline at the governor's office still being manned and still actively accepting calls that we can report abuse, neglect, and abandonment of our SINAs. I've heard about the KHA. I can't speak to say if it's still operational at the governor's office, but there are other ways that you can contact us, even on weekends, holidays, and after hours through our crisis hotline, 632-8853, to get that to us. The governor's office may have their own, the KHA, but I'm not too sure how, if they're connecting all the information that they have received on their end to us. We can take a look at that, and we can hopefully make that available if that is something that will be helpful to all. I think that was everything on the chat. I'm hoping I covered everything. I was able to answer the questions. Is there anything that you may know of, Ms. Cynthia or Mr. Dwayne or anybody at the coalition that I may need to address?
Well, we have your contact information
Yes.
up on the screen now. And so certainly we have just a couple more minutes left. And I
Sure.
know you've provided tons of information. Just wanted to remind everyone too that we will have your slides available on our website as well, on the login page. So you'll be able to also review and preview and continue to also watch the videos that you pointed out. So I don't see any additional messages in the chat. And then again, one is just coming out. So yes, it was pointed out then the username and password to that. So just want to thank you so much, Evelyn, and in the interest of time, appreciate your working with us on this to give us such tons of information on this. And I guess I cannot overemphasize the need to become more familiar with the signs as you've noted, so that we can also continue to look out for our elders, our Mañaina. And then I know that's a word that we're trying to make sure we. I know, but automatically we'll say Manamko, right?
Yes, automatically. We are the generation that say Manamko.
Yes, but we say that with terms of endearment, but of course,
and with deep respect for them.
Yes, absolutely. So just want to say thank you so much, because they are actually our treasures from the past who continue on to provide guidance to. And so now it's our turn to continue to care for them. So we applaud you and your two others in your team.
Staff of two.
The staff of three.
I can count them on my 5 fingers. Yes.
But, I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'd like to just thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure getting all the comments as well as the questions, and seeing the enthusiasm in the people that came to the webinar. And with the respect to everyone, thank you for joining us, and hope that we can get to some roundtable and begin some of these discussions that you so brought up. I'd be happy to be a part of many of them, and together as a community, we can help each other.
Yes, indeed. And we still have one more day, folks, to join us. And tomorrow we will have more information on the Elder Justice Center.
Yes.
So I know, Evelyn, you'll be standing by and listening in on that as well. And then we also have Marcy Santos, our public guardian herself, to provide more information.
Great. Good, good.
But, you know, I also wanted to do a shout out to our partners. And actually, they're really key and waiting on to provide additional information with regards to our senior centers. So
Yes.
we want to thank the senior center staff. I see that they've logged on also. So we want to thank you for joining us as well. So feel free to also join us tomorrow, provide information on when we might be able to see your opening your doors to our elders. So on that note, I know we are at the top of the hour. So
the hour.
any last words, Evelyn?
Thank you. Continue to do the good work that we all do out there, and we'll be seeing each other in our next roundtable.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And you can count on our help with that. So just a reminder, folks, please use the Q&A and the chat. We've oftentimes dismiss raising hands only because oftentimes also people raise their hands to applaud and say, yes, me too. But in this case, we look to questions or your comments in the chat and Q&A, and we'll have more of that tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks again, Evelyn, for being with us.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Be safe.
See you tomorrow.